Spain is now calling the United States a threat and pushing for Europe to build its own military power. But most Europeans don't want to fight. They don't want conscription. They definitely don't want war. So let me ask you, if a government wants power, but the people aren't willing to provide it, then what happens next? Hello, I'm Michael. This is Southern Realism, a channel about power, geopolitics, and decline. A new European survey shows something that would have been unthinkable a few years ago. In Spain, a majority of people now see Washington, D.C. as a threat. Not Russia or China, the United States. At the same time, Spain is leading the push for European autonomy, and that means less dependence on the United States, a European army, and a Europe that acts on its own. But is that independence or the start of something else? Because this shift is not happening by accident. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez is openly arguing that Europe should become a moral leader in the world and step in where the United States steps back. And to be fair, there is clarity in that position. He's not hiding what he believes. He's taking a very strong moral stand against the Iran war, against the genocide in Gaza, and against the Israeli bombing of civilians in Lebanon. He's also willing to say that Europe should take responsibility for its own direction. But that kind of language has consequences, because once you define moral leadership, then someone has to enforce it. And in Europe, that doesn't stay national. It moves upward, into Brussels, into centralized power. And no surprise here, Sanchez favors a federal Europe with a lot less national sovereignty in key policy areas. So the question becomes, is this about independence from the United States or about building a new center of centralized control inside of Europe? Spain is positioning Europe as a separate voice, and this is not just disagreement, it's the early stages of a strategic split inside the Western Alliance. And once splits like this begin to take place, they tend to harden. Now let's look at the contradiction, because the same populations pushing for independence do not want war. They don't want to fight Russia. They don't want involvement in the Middle East. They strongly oppose bringing back conscription. Polls show that in Spain, only 17% of the public would be willing to take up arms to fight and defend Spain if it were invaded, an astonishingly low figure. So again, how do you build power without people being willing to use it? Because there are only a few ways that this goes. Europe stays dependent, or it begins to build real power. But real power comes with cost, resources, control, and eventually compliance. When populations resist those costs, power doesn't just stop expanding. If people won't provide it voluntarily, it gets imposed. The gap always closes there, through policy, through pressure, or through crisis. So this isn't just about Spain, it's about a shift away from the United States towards a more centralized European structure. And the real question is, does that make Europe stronger or just less free? Put it in the comments. Is Europe actually breaking away, or is it just recognizing power in a new form?